Welcome to the Beyond the Mat podcast, an in-depth talk show discussing exclusively WWE topics.
My name's Rick Boogs, and I came to rock with the Beyond the Mats podcast that is beyond the MATT podcast. Ah!
All right, welcome to Beyond the Mat. It's the weekly fix for 6/16/2022. That is June 16, 2022. Flying solo here tonight. Just me here for you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about Randy Orton, Sasha Banks, the Vince McMahon situation, and we'll look at Money in the Bank as well as what happened this week on SmackDown and Raw. Before we get into all that, I'd like to encourage you guys to check us out on Patreon, Beyond the Mat Podcast. $1, $3, and $5 tiers, as well as the $10 World Champion tier, where you can enjoy all of this content ad-free. Also, you will be able to have access to our Discord channel, early access to our content. We'll be releasing exclusive Patreon-only content, as well as insider information and merchandise. That's right. Just like I'm drinking out of right now, we will have Beyond the Mat coffee mugs to send out to our patrons, as well as Beyond the Mat t-shirts and hoodies. So, very exciting. Let's get into it. We got Randy Orton first. Randy Orton, you all know we haven't seen him on TV since the May 20th Unified Tag Title match, RK Bro versus the Usos. And we've been hearing about a back injury. Now, originally, the program that Riddle is in with Roman Reigns was set up for Randy Orton. And once Randy Orton started having his back issues, they changed that to Riddle, and we're hoping Randy Orton could return by SummerSlam. Unfortunately, it looks like he may be out for the rest of 2022 in the worst case scenario. According to Fightful, they have learned that Orton has been dealing with a back injury for quite some time, to the point he actually had worked on to improve his condition before the tag team title unification match, though we aren't sure of the extent of the quote-unquote work that was done. They were told that things have gotten progressively worse, and WWE fears that Orton will be forced to undergo an additional surgery. WWE sources that we spoke to said that if that happens, Orton would likely be out of action for the remainder of the 2022 year. Thus far, the exact injury is not known. Fightful has been told that Randy Orton isn't factored into any creative plans for WWE at the moment, after being slated for the huge role this summer with Roman Reigns. Orton appeared on the recent internal injury report for the company and has been off WWE television since the aforementioned title loss to the Usos on May 20th. His former tag team partner Riddle has been moved into a title program with Roman Reigns that we're told was pitched originally for Orton. As of last month, Orton has been pitched and heavily figured into the SummerSlam plans, which are now in question, to say the least. Orton's former tag team partner Riddle is now facing Roman Reigns this upcoming week on SmackDown. End quote. So, according to Fightful's report there, we don't know if Randy Orton's even going to be back for SummerSlam, which greatly impacts, in my opinion, what's going to happen with Riddle and Roman Reigns this Friday. A lot of us thought, okay, Riddle's going to have a great match with Roman Reigns. Somehow Roman Reigns is going to retain here. Maybe Orton comes back shortly thereafter, challenges Roman Reigns on Riddle's behalf, and then we have a Orton and Roman Reigns program for SummerSlam. But if we have a serious injury here for Randy Orton that's going to require back surgery, maybe it's some sort of disc herniation. I've had a couple of those bulging discs. You could have transverse process fracture. I've had one of those too. You have all kinds of problems with the back. Spinal stenosis has definitely hampered a lot of careers. Sheamus is a guy who had spinal stenosis, and that hurt him a lot early in his career. And I'm surprised Sheamus is still going these days. But back injury for Randy Orton, if it requires surgery further than it already has, and it keeps him out of 2022, then they have a serious creative change here and a change for what they need to do for SummerSlam. And one thing about WWE, when they know that they had to change something that everybody was expecting to happen, or even that they didn't think everybody was expecting to happen, but that they were expecting to happen, they decide that they need to make a change in the overall direction of things and bring a special surprise. And even after Cody Rhodes went down with his injury and he was out, that led me to believe that something different's going to happen than was the plan. We could all see the trajectory that Cody Rhodes is being put on. He's most likely going to become a world champion, whether it be taking a title from Roman Reigns or Drew McIntyre or somebody else, or winning at WrestleMania or winning at Survivor, wherever it was, he was going to be a champion. They had him on the fast track to do that with the rocket ship strapped to his ass, much like they say. Theory has it, on a different level, Cody had it. As soon as he came in and Cody was living up to those expectations, Cody goes down with an injury. WWE knows that that's a letdown to the fan base. They know that that's a big change in their creative plans, and they want to deliver something special to make up for that. Could that be a Riddle victory here at SmackDown against Roman Reigns? You never know. Could it be a change in the finish to the match that allows the stipulation that Paul Heyman gave us on Monday not really to mean anything? For example, Paul Heyman said that if Riddle wins, he becomes the unified, undisputed, universal WWE heavyweight champion of the world, or however he phrases it. He said if Riddle loses, that he never gets a shot at the unified, universal heavyweight WWE championship as long as Roman Reigns holds it. But he didn't say anything about Riddle challenging Roman Reigns for one of his titles. So it's very possible that Roman Reigns could defeat Riddle clean on Friday, and Riddle could find a way to challenge him for just the WWE title. Heyman didn't say anything about Riddle not being able to do that, or Riddle could challenge him for just the Universal title at SummerSlam. All I know is that they have to have an opponent lined up for Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. And if it's been Orton all this time and it's not going to be Orton due to the injury, then Riddle could then get a second chance at SummerSlam. Obviously, Roman Reigns isn't going to be appearing on Money in the Bank. Now, this could affect who's going to win Money in the Bank now. They might want the Money in the Bank winner to challenge Roman Reigns by the time SummerSlam happens. It might have already been planned for Drew McIntyre to win Money in the Bank and do the babyface thing and call his shot with the contract and set up his match for the Clash of the Castle and win one of the titles there. Now we have a situation where we might need a way to form a new opponent for Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. Maybe you have Riddle win the Money in the Bank match, and then he gets a contract and he gets to face Roman Reigns one more time at SummerSlam, whether he wins or not. Maybe these injuries to Rhodes and to Orton are going to incite WWE to do something that they weren't originally planning to do and have Riddle go over this week. Now, if you ask me, what I think's probably going to happen is that due to the stipulation that Paul Heyman gave about Riddle losing and it being a situation where he won't get a title shot again for the unified title, not just one title, like I said earlier, but just to get rid of that stipulation and the meaning of it, you have Riddle win this by disqualification or by count out. That way, no titles change hands, but you still get a good match out of it, and the stipulation doesn't matter. So you have Riddle fight a good match with Roman Reigns. Then towards the end, some kind of interference happens, and then that causes a DQ. Riddle wins by DQ. Title stays on Roman. Everybody still looks strong afterwards. Same way Roman won a lot of his TV matches and pay-per-view matches, for that matter, in his title reign. Also heard that Sami Zayn is making his way to turn babyface on SmackDown. That leads me to wonder, could he get involved in this match? Could we have a huge smudge finish at the end of this, where we have interference by the Usos and Sami Zayn running in, and then Nakamura running in? All these people get involved in this, and it becomes a huge mess finish. Riddle's title shot gets ruined, but then again, he wins via DQ, and then he can be the SummerSlam opponent. I really think that because now Orton is down, quite possibly for the rest of 2022, but most likely out for the summer because he's not factored into any creative plans anymore. As we've noted before, he was the plan for SummerSlam. That's not going to probably happen. I think Riddle should get another shot, and he certainly deserves to have one on pay-per-view. You know, they took away his pay-per-view match for Money in the Bank. That's fine. For SummerSlam, they need to give him a pay-per-view match. He's going to have a good showing in this match on Friday, and on SummerSlam, we need to see Roman Reigns and Riddle. But the whole point in this is that we may not see Randy Orton for a while, and that's going to change what's the plan, because obviously the next three opponents, as we've mentioned, and we've all heard the rumors and all heard news from basically every outlet by now, that it was supposed to be Riddle, Orton, and then McIntyre as the next three challengers for Reigns. If Orton's removed there, who do you insert instead? And in my opinion, you just continue Riddle, considering the fact that he's not facing him at Money in the Bank anyway, and that could affect the Money in the Bank match. Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks, we have heard via Raj Giri, initially reporting it from Wrestling Inc., that Sasha Banks had been released. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful did speak to several members of WWE's staff and several higher-ups, and they all sort of said that they didn't hear that happened. Nobody has flat out denied it, and nobody has confirmed it. My guess is that she is, in fact, released or going to be released soon, and we will see a statement about that, but there is not been an official word as of now. She's still listed internally on the roster. She's still even listed online as part of the SmackDown roster, but there is no connections and no insider, nobody that I know that I've talked to that's willing to deny it. There's plenty of people who have said they haven't heard that that's happened, and there's a couple people who have actually said that they have heard that it's happened, but then backtracked on it. So at this point, there's not much else to report there other than several others are reporting that she's been released. She most likely is going to be released. It's not official at this point. Who knows where she goes now? Now, a lot of people say she should go to AEW. It's going to take a lot of money for her to go to AEW, for AEW to pay her. And I'm not sure if that's the best thing. You know, she might want to pursue more acting. She was in Mandalorian and other projects. That might be where she wants to go. She is a big star. She obviously has a lot of pride in herself. She's obviously going to be asking for a large contract and want to have control over being featured and having time on television, which may not be something that AEW is willing to offer her, both financially and the commitment on screen. I don't know, but if that's something that works out for her and she feels is best for her, then more power to her. I'm sure she would do great over there, and I'm not really sure where they're going to go from here with Naomi, because we haven't heard anything about that. But the reports about Sasha Banks being released are a little bit premature, but they are somewhat accurate. She is going to be let go from the WWE. As far as everything that I've heard from people that I speak to at WWE and from other reporters and things like that, it's just not something that's official or that has been confirmed by anybody. So it's not something that you can actually report as being factual to me at this point. It's purely speculation right now, but it is something that looks like is going to happen. So, we'll probably see some kind of announcement made, at least by her, to let her fans know and things like that. I think that's what she would probably want to do. And, we're going to move on from that. We know that this is not something that has been handled well by the WWE, in my opinion, and has been a shame overall. But, on the bright side, some other women have been able to be featured on WWE programming, which is a positive. All right, moving on to Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon has been investigated by the board of directors, along with John Laurinaitis, the head of talent relations, is being investigated as well for a scandal involving a former paralegal who Vince McMahon allegedly had an affair with, and then, quote unquote, gave to John Laurinaitis like a toy and paid an additional salary to once the affair happened. It has been reported that the affair was consensual between McMahon and the former employee. However, it is also not clear whether John Laurinaitis and his involvement in it was consensual, and it looks like John Laurinaitis is going to end up being let go here by the WWE and be the fall guy here. That would probably save Vince from being punished further than he may already be. I'm not sure exactly what is going to be the outcome of this, but I do think that it is a foregone conclusion, in my opinion, though, that John Laurinaitis' days are numbered in the WWE, unfortunately for him. And like I say, he's going to be the fall guy here for Vince McMahon. I'm not sure exactly the details of everything involving this. There's not really much I want to get into because it'd be irresponsible of me. And that's really all I have for additional news this week. We're going to get into what happened on SmackDown and Raw, and additionally, we'll get into Money in the Bank as well right after we take a break here.
The Beyond the Mat Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Beyond the Mat Podcast.
All right, we're back here on Beyond the Mat. We got the news out of the way. Now we're going to talk a little bit of SmackDown here. Now, prior to SmackDown, a report came out from Fightful about WWE and their fascination with Walter, now Gunther, and his ability to get into shape the way he has, willing to play ball with what they wanted him to do. Originally he did not want to leave the UK at all. He ended up coming over to the States, dominating in NXT 2.0, coming up to the main roster, changing his look, and a lot of these things are very appealing to Vince McMahon and WWE. Vince has enjoyed his in-ring work based on what he's seen, and obviously, given that fact, we now see him as the Intercontinental Champion, which is something that happened last week on SmackDown. He defeated Ricochet for the Intercontinental Championship after hitting a double drop kick on Ricochet the other night. So that was something that was impressive, the way that he got that drop kick in there just after Ricochet nailed him with the missile drop kick and then slammed him with his powerbomb stack pin combo. Gunther's been great in the ring as a big man, and I'm really interested to see if they can continue working him and Ricochet together, because having them in the ring together with the speed and the power is absolutely a sight to see. That's the kind of matchups you want to see in wrestling, those clashes of different styles. The opposites attract there, and they really put on a good story in the ring. And I think Ricochet and Gunther can continue to do that for another month if they wanted to. Now you also have Ludwig Kaiser in there as somebody who we haven't seen much of, but definitely has some skills that we've seen in NXT and a little bit on SmackDown. And we can see Ricochet most likely have a good match with him as well. So I think that program moving forward is going to be pretty good. We also had the qualifying match with Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Ended with them getting both double disqualified after hitting each other with chairs. It's kind of weird because Sheamus hit McIntyre with the chair first. Shouldn't he be disqualified? No, he didn't. Now, shouldn't Sheamus have gotten disqualified when Butch came into the ring and McIntyre had to Claymore kick him? No, they waited till they could double DQ him. That's fine. It seems like what they want is for both of these guys to make the Money in the Bank match somehow, continue to come to a draw or no contest in whatever rematch they have, and then you have both of them in the Money in the Bank match. I think that's probably where WWE's going with this. Kind of makes sense. I mean, they're two guys that are very good in the ring. They're very talented. They're top guys. They need them in the match. They're a heel and a face. They need to be having guys in the match that are credible to win the match and credible to do something with the briefcase. Both of them are, and I have no problem with both them being in the match. And however they want to get there, if they want to keep doing this back and forth, this guy disqualifies this guy, the next guy gets counted out, whatever they want to argue, I think it's a pretty creative way to get two guys into a Money in the Bank match by having them keep DQing and keep getting double count outs or this, that, and the third. I'm interested to see where they go next, but I think what they're trying to do with this is they're trying to get McIntyre and Sheamus both into the Money in the Bank, and they're trying to find creative ways to do that by having them face each other, create that heat between the two of them so that it's there in the Money in the Bank match. And then when it's there, they can use that within the match, because the match is all about having those little stories within the match. This year, it's going to be 7 men, 7 women in the respective matches. And I think these will be 2 of them. We know Rollins is qualified from Raw, which we will get to in a minute. We also had Lacey Evans qualify for the women's Money in the Bank match after hitting the women's right on Xia Li. Xia Li, we haven't seen much of. It didn't make much sense to me for her to be featured in the Money in the Bank. And I honestly think Lacey Evans is one of my dark horse picks to win the Money in the Bank. They've had that story they want to get behind. They didn't want to turn her heel. They kept her as a babyface, given all the heaviness of her story. She's somebody you want to get behind. She wins this thing, and then she has something to sort of complete her mission statement and all that. Like I said, everything we knew about what WWE was planning really changed with the Cody injury and now the news of Randy Orton. But so Lacey Evans wins with the women's right. And I really like the name of that finishing move, the women's right, being a right hand. Nice name for a finishing move. She qualifies for Money in the Bank. Jumping out of order here on Raw, we have Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss taking on Doudrop and Nikki ASH, or Nikki TR ASH, and Nikki ASH wearing a black and gold costume here instead of the blue and gold costume that we're used to seeing her in. Didn't make a difference. Her and Doudrop lose. Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss win. They qualify for the Money in the Bank match that way. And then on Raw Talk, they show them in an interview being asked how excited they are for Money in the Bank and also being a tag team now. And then this allowed them to sort of start a little bit of a feud between the two of them. They're happy to be together, but Alexa thinks she wants to win for the second time, and Liv wants to win for the first time. And to be honest with you, this was one of the better promos I've ever seen Liv Morgan do with somebody. And with Alexa Bliss, we know she's great behind the mic, and they really interacted well here. This was on Raw Talk, not on Raw. And it was after Raw was over. Not that many people watch that, but it did sort of show the benefit of having a tag team match be the qualifying match, because you have two people who could form a friendship or bond and then turn on each other within that match. Again, another story within the big ladder match that I think is important. And so we have those two qualify, and then we have Becky Lynch come out for a 24/7 title match with Dana Brooke. And Becky Lynch didn't care about the 24/7 title at all. She beat the hell out of Dana Brooke before the match even started. This prompted Asuka to come out and save Dana Brooke from further damage from Becky Lynch. Now, Becky Lynch got on the microphone and declared that she needed to win Money in the Bank to be able to have a title shot, and that this was not about the 24/7 title. It's about the path she has paved for others, a path of greatness, and that she's going to get back to that. So I think that her match with Asuka, regardless of the winner, I think that both of them will qualify for the Money in the Bank somehow. I think if Becky loses, she'll find a way to convince Adam Pearce or whoever to give her another match or another chance, just like she did to get into the triple threat, and she will get into this. And I think that she is definitely a worthy winner of the Money in the Bank briefcase. I don't think Liv Morgan will win it. I don't think that Alexa Bliss will win it. I don't think that Lacey Evans really will win it, except, the fact that I'm saying that things can change. Got to understand right now we have two babyface champions, so it's, to me, got to be a heel that wins it. But I don't rule out the fact that Rhea Ripley could beat Bianca Belair at Money in the Bank in the Raw Women's Championship match, because let's face it, Bianca Belair has not had the greatest title reign since WrestleMania. We really haven't seen her cut any captivating promos. She's been in the one great triple threat match, but it was a triple threat match. The other two women really did more impressive work in that match than Bianca. She was probably the least impressive of all three women in that match. In my opinion, Becky was the most impressive. Asuka followed, and they really carried that match. We really haven't seen Bianca be that commanding behind the microphone. She looked scared in this promo, and I understand part of the Judgment Day whole gimmick is to scare people, but, I would have liked to have seen Bianca improv something back, especially knowing that she's probably talking to a pre-taped screen and could get away with saying whatever she wanted to. And Bianca just hasn't really been featured that much. And I don't know if they just don't have the confidence to give Bianca the screen time. And, even when she's on commentary, she doesn't say anything. She kind of just sits there. So I can see I can see Rhea Ripley taking this title from her at Money in the Bank. Then we'd have a heel champion, and that would change who I think would win Money in the Bank. Who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, I'd have to make that call before the pay-per-view. But I just don't think that we're going to get a babyface winning the women's Money in the Bank due to the fact that we have babyface champions. We need a heel to win that. Becky Lynch fits that. But having Asuka and Becky Lynch in the match makes a lot of sense, because they're two top people. They're feuding. Then we have another feud within the big match. Makes a lot of sense. I don't know how they're going to get there, but that's my prediction for what's going to happen. One of the two of them is going to defeat the other. I honestly think Asuka is going to win the match on Raw, and then Becky's going to find a way to qualify for the match anyway, and we're going to get there that way. So back on SmackDown, Rousey comes out, cuts a quick promo. Shotzi really fires it up on the mic. It was nice to see Shotzi and her personality. She's a real loudmouth. I thought that it was a pretty cheesy line by Ronda Rousey to say, all right, I'll give you your Shotzi. You are on ski. I mean, could see that as funny, but at the end of the day, it was a little bit cheesy, in my opinion, but whatever. She ends up fighting a nice match against Ronda, does Shotzi, but Ronda ends up hitting a pretty sloppy looking Piper's Pit to roll into an armbar and force the submission for the victory. I like the way that they're presenting Ronda as a fighting champion. That's the way you get a babyface champion over. You have them come out. You have heels cut promos on them. They have a match. They defend the championship. The heels that are beneath them get elevated in the match because they look like they're pretty strong and can almost defeat the champion. But at the end of the day, the champion does what they need to do to put away the heel. And that is why we have a veteran in Natalya in the long-term program for the pay-per-view. And we have all these younger women fighting against Ronda every week for the championship. It elevates them. And now they can get into feuds with each other that feel much stronger because they have been elevated to feel stronger, having fought a formidable match with the champion. So we'll see where that goes with Ronda Rousey and Natalya at the pay-per-view. I think we're eventually looking at Ronda versus Shayna Baszler, and that's why Natalya is the opponent right now. You have a heel that everybody is going to boo that can work a good match. She can get through this with Ronda Rousey, have a good match, and then by proxy to Shayna Baszler, they can move on. Shayna Baszler is Natalya's tag team partner, if you want to call her that. And we always see them together, so I can see some interference. They've been teasing a lot of Rousey and Baszler face-offs. We saw it in the Royal Rumble. We saw it in a tag match a few weeks ago before Ronda got pulled out of the ring. So I think Baszler will be the opponent at SummerSlam for Ronda Rousey. And that's another reason why I think Becky Lynch probably will win the Money in the Bank. Because if we have Baszler and Rousey at SummerSlam, then Money in the Bank can be won by Becky. She can cash it in and take on Bianca at the SummerSlam pay-per-view. You never know. I just don't think that a babyface woman is going to win that match. Now, also on SmackDown, we had Riddle and Sami Zayn fight a very good match. Had Riddle lost this match, he would have been banned from SmackDown. And if Riddle won the match, he would get the title shot against Roman the following week. The finish saw Riddle win after hitting an RKO, and he gets his title shot this week on SmackDown against Roman Reigns. And then we had the MITB segment to open up Raw that had Paul Heyman stating that Riddle would become the Universal Unified Champion if he wins, but if he loses, he will never get a chance to fight for the Universal Unified Heavyweight Championship again as long as Roman Reigns holds it. Now, like I said earlier in the show, he didn't say that he can't fight for just one of those titles, and obviously it doesn't matter if he fights for one of those titles if Roman Reigns doesn't have it. So, if somebody else wins the title, Riddle is still a top guy who can get that, and he could still challenge Roman Reigns for just the WWE title. And on top of that, given the fact that we have Randy Orton now rumored to be injured and may be out for the rest of 2022 and certainly probably the rest of this summer, and we have big babyface Cody Rhodes out for a long time, plans can change. I think anything can happen with this. I really do. I mean, you have Roman Reigns. I always defended Roman Reigns as being a great champion, being the guy who needed to defeat Brock Lesnar at Mania to have the unified championship because he's always been there. He's always been doing the house shows. He's got booed out of the building for years. He's been the kind of champion that you want to be your champion. He's always fought on. He's been making appearances forever. And then as soon as he becomes a unified champion, he turns into Brock Lesnar and we don't see him at all. And I don't appreciate that. I need champions on the television. Somebody needs to take at least one of those titles from him and make it relevant. It means nothing if he's on vacation with it. I understand that he gets time off and things like that. But if this is going to be his schedule for the rest of the whole time, then they need to have somebody win it from him. And they need to read the tea leaves from the fans that we don't want a unified champion who doesn't show up. So just have Riddle win this match and end this stuff. But then, of course, that would end the amazing reign that Roman Reigns has had. And I don't feel like Roman Reigns should have to lose the longevity of the reign, although, in my opinion, the quality is much more important than the longevity. So I think that given the fact that we now know that plans are changing with Orton, plans obviously change with Cody, let's have this match on SmackDown be a wonderful match, end it in a DQ. Riddle wins via DQ, doesn't win the titles, gets a rematch at SummerSlam, challenges just for the WWE title, wins the title, and then we don't have Roman Reigns not on TV, not on pay-per-view, not on anything, defending nothing, and we have a champion who is going to be there. Then at Clash of the Castle, you have Drew McIntyre fight Roman Reigns for something. If this doesn't happen at SummerSlam with Riddle, then at Clash of the Castle, Drew McIntyre needs to win one of the titles. He needs to not go after both, go after one of them, go after the WWE Championship, so that way you have Roman Reigns as a Universal Champion. They can extend his reign and have him be the longest reigning champion. He deserves that. That's fine. But they don't need to have both titles on him. It makes no sense. And if he's not going to be there, let's get it on somebody else. That's why I think that I originally feel that Drew McIntyre will make the Money in the Bank match and will probably win, because then he can do the babyface thing and not do a sneak up cash in, but he can cash in and say, I'm calling my shot. I want my title shot at Clash at the Castle. And then you defeat Roman Reigns there. Hopefully we see something happen with these world titles, because it's getting ridiculous in my opinion. So John Cena. John Cena is rumored to return, actually all but confirmed to return in 2 weeks on Raw for the John Cena 20th anniversary. There's been all kinds of rumors as far as a program involving Theory. Theory is currently feuding with Lashley. We saw the pose down on Raw at the end of the show. Bobby Lashley looked absolutely, totally animalistic compared to Theory, although Theory was cut himself. Theory then took Lashley out with the baby oil to the face. We all know Vince McMahon probably loves seeing this segment. And so obviously Lashley's after the U.S. title of Theory. Makes me wonder, is Lashley going to take that U.S. title with Cena coming back in just 2 weeks? Is Cena going to get involved in this? I think what's going to happen is we're going to have two guys cutting promos on each other, Lashley and Theory. Theory continuing to saying, this is my ring, this is my that, and Lashley saying, no, that's my ring. And then Cena's going to make an entrance and say, no, that's my title, that's my ring, my WWE universe. And it's going to become a three-man feud, and it's going to elevate the U.S. title drastically. I don't know who's going to come out on top here. I could definitely see Theory coming out on top at the end, because he's the guy they want to push, the one they want to eventually have as a Universal Champion. So I don't see any problem with that. But I think the John Cena and the Bobby Lashley and the Theory situation is going to become a three-man situation. I don't see Theory and Lashley getting through their feud quick enough for it to just become Cena and Theory. You could see Lashley defeat Theory for the U.S. title rather soon to get it off of him and make Cena and Lashley a non-title feud. But I think that it's important to elevate the importance of the U.S. title. You have John Cena there to do that, and it makes a lot of sense to do that, especially considering the situation that Roman Reigns is putting you in, having your main title off of TV completely. So that's where I think they're going with that. Another surprise on Raw, we had Kevin Owens and Ezekiel in a match. Ezekiel had a nice looking inverted fallaway slam in this match. He ended up winning via countout when KO got angry at Byron Saxton for repeatedly calling Ezekiel by the name Ezekiel, stomped on the table like a little child and got very angry, said his name's Elias. That ended up getting him counted out. And then Ezekiel said that Elias, his older brother, will be back next week for a concert. That's something that's interesting, because I've been saying for a while, I think maybe we're all getting played here and we're going to see the both of them on screen after all. Now, what I've heard is actually going to be the case is that they're going to do the Hollywood makeup job to Ezekiel to make him look like Elias. He's going to come out and play a concert in ring, and they have already pre-filmed the Ezekiel segments backstage that they will be playing on the Titantron. So it will seem like they are both in the building, but they both aren't. It's just one guy. There's always the possibility that it's just two different guys. You never know. I mean, the information that is leaked to me and that is leaked to others sometimes is false on purpose. And so you never know what's going to happen. Ezekiel and Elias could be two different guys. My best bet tells you that we're going to get the kind of segment I'm saying where something's pre-taped and you get Elias doing the concert. I definitely think Elias will do a live concert. I don't think it'll be on the big screen. I think he will do it in the ring. And maybe they'll even make it look a little bit funny. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be Elias on the big screen. It's going to be Elias in the ring. And I think Ezekiel is going to be backstage. We're going to take another break here. And then we're going to finish up our weekly fix.
The Beyond the Mat Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Beyond the Mat Podcast.
Alrighty, remember guys that you can get rid of all the ads by joining us on Patreon, Beyond the Mat Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Beyond Mat WWE. Shoot us an email whenever you want to, matt@beyondthemat.com. And leave us a 5-star rating or write a review on whichever podcast platform you are using. We are available on almost all of them and YouTube as well. A couple other things that happened on Raw. We had Mustafa Ali versus Chad Gable. And we also had Riddle versus Tommaso Ciampa. And, you know, to me, these are two guys, Mustafa Ali and Ciampa, both losing their matches respectively, who are basically behaving or being portrayed as jobbers for bigger stars here. Now, Gable's not a huge star, but he's definitely somebody who could be pushed to the level of the U.S. title picture or something like that. I don't know if I ever see him as world champion or if WWE sees him that way, given his size, but he's definitely an outstanding in-ring worker. You know, the chain wrestling he does to start the matches out is always so smooth. I mean, he did it so well in this match with Ali. They really worked well together in the ring. Mustafa Ali hit a couple nice looking moves as well. Chad Gable ended up winning this one. His Northern Lights suplex is so beautiful. His moonsault, he just glides through the air. And even the drop toe holds and the joint manipulations is so well done by Gable. He throws in his shooshes and his comedy stuff. I'm a huge fan of what Gable does. And Mustafa Ali, you know, I'd like to see him in a more prominent role, but we don't really see that. We saw Tommaso Ciampa basically as an enhancement talent for Riddle heading into his match after he attacked him last week on MITB. Ciampa did a nice job in this match. You know, I like Ciampa. He's great guy in the ring. I think the neck injury really hurts WWE's confidence in putting a push into him, but playing the role that he does, you know, working matches, he will get over somehow with somebody and get some kind of opportunity. He worked really well in this match. Riddle ended up winning it. They didn't go very long. They went 4 or 5 minutes, but the time that Tommaso Ciampa got, he did a great job in this match. So we have Rey Mysterio also versus Veer. Rey made Veer look a lot bigger here, a lot stronger, having Rey fly around and do the stuff they did. I thought it was pretty dumb that Veer got sent ringside and attacked Dominic, barely even hit him, and Dominic went flying into the timekeeper's area. But Veer ended up beating Rey Mysterio the same way he beats everybody else with the cervical clutch. Rey tapped pretty simply, and that just makes Veer look stronger, beating a legend like that. And the big thing that happened on Raw was the Money in the Bank qualifier between Seth and AJ Styles. Outstanding match between the two of them. Seth ends up taking advantage of AJ Styles' evidently injured knee and rolls him up, stops him from a sunset flip and has him in a roll-up position, pins him. I thought this was an outstanding match. I don't understand why they don't have both of these guys in the Money in the Bank match. I don't think this will be a situation where you have both guys working their way in the match somehow anyway, like I do with McIntyre and Sheamus or with Becky and Asuka. But I do think that Rollins is a guy who could win this Money in the Bank ladder match, or at least should be in it to make it a better match. Same reason why I think McIntyre and Sheamus should be in it. Having strong guys that are veterans in this match, and you maybe throw in a couple younger guys, then it's really going to be a really interesting match. You know, they could just go with all top guys and it could be a complete banger of a match. I don't know. But I definitely think Seth being the first man who officially qualified is definitely something that makes sense. You know, now you have Cody out for a little while. Seth is not turning babyface as some people thought he would. And, you know, it's a good idea to have Seth in the match. You have Roman Reigns as champion, and Seth has unfinished business with Roman after the Royal Rumble when Seth beat him via DQ but did not get a title because of it, because you don't win a title in a DQ. So, you know, the two of these definitely had the best match I saw all week, and I'm interested to see who else qualifies right now. In my opinion, either Rollins or McIntyre's winning the men's Money in the Bank, unless, of course, something happens with Riddle here and Orton is, in fact, out for the rest of the summer. Then I could see Riddle maybe winning the Money in the Bank and getting another shot at Roman Reigns. Not much more happened on Raw. We had Montez Ford and Jimmy Uso in a match that basically meant nothing. Uso ended up winning with a roll-up after Montez Ford went for a frog splash and Uso got his knees up. It was a good match between the two guys. They're great workers, but the match really didn't mean anything. They're going to have the tag title match, I believe, at the pay-per-view. I don't see the Street Profits winning that match, but I do see a bright future for Montez Ford. This guy's pecs are strong. They're Vince McMahon approved. I really think that he's going to be a great single star. You know, Angelo Dawkins has looked better too recently, and I think that he could be a mid-card guy, but I really think that Montez Ford could definitely be a top guy here coming up pretty soon. So we'll look out for that. You know, moving ahead now, we have a Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss match planned for SmackDown called a Last Laugh match. I'm not sure what the hell that means, but it's probably going to mean Last Man Standing or something like that. You know, Corbin's the kind of guy who's really helped Madcap Moss grow. He understands that he's a guy that everybody hates and that everybody's going to boo him. And he knows how much he can help a guy if he's with him and he works against him and gets everybody to boo him and therefore by proxy cheer the other guy. And he really helped Madcap Moss out in that way. He was on Ryan Satin's podcast, Out of Character, and, you know, he explained that kind of stuff. But that's something that I've always respected about Corbin. I don't think he's ever really been babyface except for one feud. He's always a heel. He doesn't really ever get much more than comedy gimmicks, and some of them are pretty lame, but he does the best he can with them, and I got to respect that. So, you know, and then Madcap Moss, obviously, you know, with the new gimmick he's got here, still same name. We'll see what that means as far as his style and as far as his attitude. You know, it seems like he's a little bit more aggressive, but I like his speed. I like his in-ring work. So we'll see where that goes. We also have on SmackDown, Max Dupree going to reveal his first client. I think it's going to be T-Bar. It could be Mansoor because that was the other guy he was working with in the dark matches, but I just think it's going to be T-Bar here. But it also could be Mace. Mace was another one he was working with. And, you know, I honestly think that it could be any of those three. But I'm going to put my money on T-Bar just because he already worked with Mace and Mansoor in the dark matches. And I think here he's going to introduce somebody different, and it's going to be T-Bar. The other thing that we have is Natalya most likely going to have some kind of interaction with Ronda Rousey ahead of their title match. She'll probably attack Ronda Rousey backstage or something like that. We also have the title match between Reigns and Riddle. And like I said before, I thought there was no way Riddle would do anything in this match, have any shot at all. I think that he actually has a shot now, and he could win this match, at least win the match via DQ, or be a big schmaz finish. Sami Zayn gets involved, like I said. Another prediction I have for SmackDown is that Sami Zayn is going to turn babyface here after being basically kicked away from the bloodline. I think he's going to turn on the bloodline, and that's going to be something that people are surprised about. And then, of course, we have McIntyre and Sheamus. I think that we're going to see more interaction with them. I don't know if we're getting a rematch already with them, but if we are, I think we're going to see that rematch end in some kind of double no contest disqualification count out situation. I really think, though, that the last couple of episodes of Raw, SmackDown, they've had good wrestling on them, and they've, been absent of the excessive comedy 24/7 segments or the New Day segments where it's just too much. I don't mind the New Day if it's some serious stuff and they're involved in a match that hasn't been rematched 1,000 times. They're fine. But when it's the New Day out here dancing with Drew McIntyre, I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm a huge fan of Drew McIntyre himself, but I just don't think Drew McIntyre needs to be around that. I like the New Day on its own, but not with all the goofy antics and all that. And I think that having qualifying matches and having matches that mean something matter. And that's all the more reason why we need to have title matches on TV, why Rousey as the fighting champion has been working for me, and why it's going to be good to see Roman Reigns and Riddle in this match regardless of the outcome. And, we have changes now with Cody Rhodes out, and we have Orton out. We have Sasha Banks likely leaving the company, Vince McMahon likely under some hot water here. A lot of things could change from what we originally thought were going to happen leading into the summer, so I'm excited to see what happens. Now we're going to get into my best and worst of the week. My best match of the week was Styles and Rollins on Raw. My worst match of the week was MVP and Cedric Alexander. Best dressed had to go with Liv Morgan. I would go with Alexa Bliss, but she's basically been wearing the same thing every week, so I'm going to go with Liv Morgan. Worst dressed was Nikki ASH because all she did was basically change the blue part of her costume to black. And, as nice as it looked for her to be wearing something different, she could be wearing something completely different and change her gimmick completely, and it would be a lot more appealing to me. The best promo or segment for me was Heyman on MITB. I think he's great anytime he's on the mic, and, I just really enjoyed the way that he articulates things. Worst promo or segment to me was the pose down at the end. I don't like that kind of stuff, and I think it's so 1992 WWE, Lex Luger kind of baloney that I'm not into. My best line was Kevin Owens yelling, "It's Elias" at the commentary team. I thought it was really funny. And, Owens just makes this whole thing really, really interesting. My worst line of the night was "We are all equal" by the Judgment Day. If you're going to have a faction, how are you all going to be equal? It doesn't make any sense for you all to be equal. You need to have a leader. My best move was the inverted fallaway slam by Ezekiel on Kevin Owens. Worst move of the week, Ronda's Piper's Pit. She looked like she's almost dropped Shotzi when she was picking her up. Maybe her back gave out, or maybe she was selling something from the back, or selling something in the back from the match. But I just don't think it looked clean or looked good. So that was my worst move of the week. Best moment was Becky beating down Dana and saying the 24/7 title doesn't matter, because quite frankly, it doesn't. And the worst moment of the week, my opinion, was when MVP was talking about Omos wanting to be in the Money in the Bank and how he could just step on the first or second rung to grab the briefcase. Finding out that Omos could possibly be in that match is an absolute terrible moment. I don't think he belongs in the match. I don't think he would make it good. Yeah, it would make it interesting to have a monster in there that, you know, you had to sit there and hit with the ladder 7 times just to knock him off his feet. But at the same time, I just don't think that having a clunky guy in there who really doesn't seem like he's very safe, having him in that match is a good idea. Have your Seth Rollins and your McIntyres and all these top guys that we want to see fight each other that haven't really had a match in a little while. Put them in the match. Don't put Omos in there to screw everything up. I just don't think it's a great idea. So that's what I had there. And now we're going to move on to some trivia for you guys. Question is, who is the only WWE superstar who has captured the Intercontinental Championship 8 times? I'll give the listeners a few seconds to decide, and then I will give the answer. Your answer is Chris Jericho. You are right. So, Chris Jericho is the only WWE superstar to win the Intercontinental Championship 8 times. Gunther is our championship right now. I doubt he's going to have 8 title reigns, but I can see him as a future world champion, and that would be interesting. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys this week. Flying solo is a little bit difficult because I don't have anybody to bounce my ideas off of. But at the end of the day, I know my co-hosts are busy and they'll be here when they can be. Like I say, I'm going to have more stuff out for you guys on the Patreon. And I'm also going to be doing a show over the weekend to answer your fan questions that you've sent in. So just hang in there. Again, shout out to Aiden Down Under and Original Simulant on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at BeyondMattWWE. Subscribe to us on all podcast platforms and get rid of the ads by paying $1 a month on patreon.com. Look for the Beyond the Mat podcast. We're also available on YouTube and other social media platforms as well. And until next time, guys.
I think I'm going to go to the nearest nudie bar and have a drink.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Mat. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a show.